The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that orbited the neutral world below. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with strange inner light. They all waited for the vote that would change everything. Ambassador Daejung stood at the human podium, his hands resting on the smooth surface. He was an old man now, with gray hair and tired eyes. For 30 years he had served humanity in this chamber. He had negotiated treaties, solved disputes, and built friendships across the galaxy. Today he felt all those years weighing on his shoulders. The resolution on the display screens was simple. Resolution 7749 would take away 3 sectors of space from human control. These sectors contained 6 planets that humans had been terraforming for decades. They had poured resources, time, and lives into making those worlds livable. Now other species wanted them. High Arbiter Thune presided over the chamber from the central platform. The crystalline being was ancient, older than most civilizations in the room. Its voice echoed like wind through caves. The vote will now commence. All in favor of Resolution 7749 indicate now. Lights began appearing on the massive board. Green for yes, red for no. Daejung watched as the green lights multiplied. The Mantric Collective voted yes. The Kelvorian Empire voted yes. The Plasma Collective voted yes. Species after species chose to take what humans had worked so hard to build. Councillor Vexith, the insectoid representative from the Mantric Collective, clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. He had pushed hard for this resolution. Humans expand too quickly, he had said during the debates. They take too much too fast. They need to be controlled. Daejung had argued against these claims. He had shown records of human colonization efforts. Every world humans terraformed had been empty, lifeless rock. No one else wanted these planets until humans made them valuable. He presented centuries of human cooperation and fair dealing. None of it mattered. The final tally appeared on the screen. 39 in favor. 8 against. The resolution passed. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some species celebrated quietly. Others sat in uncomfortable silence. Captain Hana, watching from the observation deck above, felt her jaw tighten. She commanded the human defense fleet stationed nearby. She had seen this coming for years. This was not the first time the Council had ruled against humanity. Over the past 15 years, there had been dozens of small cuts. Trade restrictions, technology limitations, border disputes always settled in favor of other species. Each time humans had accepted the decision and tried to work within the system. Each time they believed things would get better. Daejung looked around the chamber. He saw Vexith's satisfied expression. He saw the uncomfortable faces of the 8 species who had voted no. He saw Thune's unreadable crystalline form. After 30 years, he finally understood something important. This would never stop. Humanity would always be the outsider, the one blamed, the one restricted. He took a deep breath and activated his podium again. The attention of 47 species focused on him. High Arbiter, distinguished counselors, Daejung began, his voice steady and calm. I have served in this chamber for 3 decades. I have always believed in the ideals this council was founded upon. Cooperation, justice, mutual respect. Today I realize those ideals no longer apply to my people. The chamber grew quiet. Even the species that had voted yes stopped their celebrations. For 15 years, humanity has faced restriction after restriction. We have been told we expand too fast even though we only settle empty worlds. We have been told we are too aggressive, even though we have not started a single war. We have been told we take too much even though we share our technology freely. Daejung's voice grew stronger. Today's vote is not about 3 sectors. It is about whether humans will ever be treated as equals in this council. The answer is clear. We will not. Vexith stood up, his multiple legs clicking on the floor. Ambassador, you are overreacting. This is one decision made democratically. One decision? Daejung turned to face the insectoid. Counselor, this is the 47th resolution passed against human interests in 15 years. 47. And in every case, we accepted the decision. We tried to compromise. We tried to prove ourselves worthy of respect. He turned back to address the full chamber. But respect cannot be earned from those who have already decided you do not deserve it. And compromise means nothing when only one side is expected to give. High Arbiter Thune spoke, its voice carrying concern for the first time. Ambassador Daejung, what are you saying? Daejung reached into his jacket and pulled out a small metal disc. The Human Council seal, symbol of humanity's membership for the past 80 years. He held it up for all to see. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted. Species began shouting, some in anger, others in shock. Thune's crystalline form pulsed with light, trying to restore order. But Daejung was already walking toward the exit. He placed the seal carefully on the podium as he passed. The metal disc gleamed under the chamber lights, looking small and lonely on the wide surface. "Ambassador, wait." One of the counselors from the 8 who voted no called out. "We can discuss this. We can find a solution." Daejung paused at the door. "For 15 years we have discussed. For 15 years we have searched for solutions. Today humanity found one. We will stand on our own." As he left the chamber, the seal remained behind. It would stay there for days before anyone dared to touch it. A reminder that even founding members could reach their breaking point. Captain Hana met Daejung in the corridor outside. She said nothing, simply nodded once. She had already received her orders through secure channels. All human diplomatic vessels would be escorted home. All human personnel would leave council space within the week. Behind them, the council chamber descended into chaos. Species argued about what this meant. Some called humans cowards for leaving. Others worried about the implications. A few very quietly wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. High Arbiter Thune looked at the empty human podium and the abandoned seal. In 800 years, no founding member had ever left the council. The crystalline being had seen empires rise and fall, but this felt different. This felt like the beginning of something that could not be stopped. Vexith celebrated with his allies, but the celebration felt hollow. He had won the vote, but somehow it felt like a loss. The look in Daejung's eyes had not been anger or hatred. It had been disappointment. And that Vexith would later realize was far worse. As Daejung's ship left the council chamber station, he looked back at the massive structure one last time. So much history, so many memories, all of it ending today. "Ambassador, are we doing the right thing?" his aide asked quietly. Daejung thought about the question. "I do not know if it is right, but I know it is necessary. Sometimes you have to walk away from something broken before you can build something better." The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying humanity away from the council and toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the galaxy began to realize what it had lost. Director Tae Yang sat in his office deep inside Earth's intelligence agency headquarters. Around him, holographic screens displayed reports from across the galaxy. Each screen showed a different reaction to humanity's withdrawal from the council. Some reactions were expected. Others surprised him greatly. The Mantric Collective issued a statement within hours. They called humanity's departure emotional and short-sighted. Counselor Vexith appeared on several broadcasts, saying humans would come crawling back within months. "They need the council more than the council needs them," he declared confidently. But the markets told a different story. Within the first week, 3 major trade routes fell apart. These routes had depended entirely on human-maintained way station infrastructure. Humans had built the stations, staffed them, and kept them running for decades. Now those stations received orders to shut down and return home. Merchant ships from dozens of species suddenly had nowhere to refuel or resupply on their journeys. A trip that once took 2 weeks now took 6. Costs tripled overnight. Tae Yang watched the economic data with interest. Humanity was discovering something important. They had always been told they needed the council. No one had mentioned how much the council needed them. Young Mi, a journalist for the Human News Network, traveled to different human colonies to gauge public opinion. She expected anger, maybe fear. Instead, she found determination. On New Seoul Colony, she interviewed a farmer named Dong Hyun. He grew food in massive hydroponic farms that fed millions. "I supported the withdrawal," he told her, standing among his crops. "My grandfather told me stories about how the council treated us. Always second class, always having to prove ourselves. I am glad we finally stood up." "But are you worried about trade disruptions?" Young Mi asked. "Your exports might suffer." Dong Hyun shrugged. "Maybe for a while. But we humans are good at adapting. We will find new markets. We always do." Young Mi found similar attitudes across human space. Factory workers, scientists, teachers, soldiers, most supported the withdrawal. A few worried about the economic impact, but even they agreed something had to change. Back on Earth, Ambassador Dae-jung faced different challenges. Messages flooded his office. Death threats from extremist alien factions who hated humanity. Angry letters from humans who thought he had acted too rashly. But also, quietly, messages of support. 8 species had voted against Resolution 7749. Now, representatives from those species contacted Earth through private channels. They could not support humanity openly without facing council backlash, but they sent encrypted messages expressing solidarity. One message came from Ambassador Krell of the Dorani Consortium. "What happened to your people was unjust," Krell wrote. "Many of us see this, but we are afraid to speak. The Council punishes dissent. I hope humanity finds its path. Perhaps someday we will have the courage to follow." Dae-jung read these messages late at night, alone in his office. They gave him hope, but also sadness. How many other species felt trapped by the Council's power? How long before they reached their own breaking points? Director Tae-yang uncovered something more troubling in his intelligence reports. His agents had intercepted communications between several Council species from before the vote. These species had been planning even harsher restrictions on humanity. Resolution 7749 was just the beginning. They wanted to limit human military ships, control human technology development, eventually reduce human space to just a few core systems. The plan was to do it gradually, so humans would not realize what was happening until it was too late. "They feared us," Tae-yang explained to President Bora during a secure briefing. "Not because we were aggressive, but because we were successful. We terraformed faster, adapted quicker, and built better than they expected. Some species saw us as a threat simply for existing." President Bora absorbed this information silently. She was a relatively new leader, elected just 2 years before. The withdrawal had been her decision to support, along with her cabinet and the human parliament. "We made the right choice then," she said finally. "If we had stayed, they would have slowly strangled us." Meanwhile, the Council tried to continue business as usual. But cracks appeared immediately. 2 species, the Helvar and the Kix, had been in a border dispute for 30 years. The Council had mediated between them, keeping the peace. Ambassador Dae-jung had personally negotiated the last 5 treaties between them. Now, with humans gone, the old tensions flared up again. The Helvar refused to accept mediation from the Mantric Collective. "They voted to steal human territory," the Helvar ambassador stated. "Why would we trust them with ours?" The Kix felt the same way about other potential mediators. Similar problems emerged across Council space. Humans, it turned out, had been the trusted neutral party in dozens of disputes. Other species had biases and rivalries, but humans were new enough and fair enough that most species accepted their mediation. Without them, old conflicts began resurging. Trade routes were only part of the problem. Humans had also been sharing technology freely. Medical advances, agricultural techniques, power generation systems. They gave these innovations to the Council's shared technology database. Other species had grown dependent on these contributions without realizing it. Now that flow of technology stopped. Human scientists stopped attending Council research conferences. Human engineers stopped collaborating on joint projects. The pace of innovation across Council space slowed noticeably. Young Mai published a series of articles about these changes. Her most popular piece was titled "The Things We Built." It detailed humanity's contributions to the Council over 80 years. The list was long and impressive. Reading it, many humans realized for the first time just how much they had given. The article went viral, translated into hundreds of alien languages. It circulated through Council space despite attempts by some governments to suppress it. Citizens of other species began asking questions. Why had their leaders pushed humanity out? What did they lose by doing so? Not everyone reacted negatively to humanity's departure. The Mantric Collective and their closest allies doubled down on their position. They organized a coalition of species committed to limiting human influence. They began building their own way station network to replace the human one. They recruited scientists from other species to fill the innovation gap. But this coalition faced challenges. Building way stations took time and resources. Their scientists, while skilled, could not match the pace of human innovation. Humanity had centuries of Earth history teaching them to adapt or die. That created a culture of problem-solving that other species, comfortable in their established ways, struggled to match. Captain Hana and the human defense fleet took up positions along the borders of human space. Some species saw the withdrawal as an opportunity to test human resolve. Small probing attacks occurred along 3 different border sectors. Each attack was repelled swiftly and decisively. Hana made sure of that. She wanted to send a clear message. Humans standing alone were not weak prey. They were a unified force prepared to defend themselves. After the 3rd border incident, the attack stopped. The species testing humanity reported back that human military coordination had actually improved after leaving the Council. Without Council restrictions on military exercises and defensive preparations, humans had become more formidable, not less. 3 months after the withdrawal, High Arbiter Thune called a closed Council session. The crystalline being had been observing everything carefully. Now it needed to address the reality everyone was ignoring. "We made a mistake," Thune stated simply. The chamber fell silent. The High Arbiter rarely admitted fault. Humanity was not perfect, but they were valuable partners. More valuable than we acknowledged. The evidence is clear. Our economy suffers. Our conflicts multiply. Our innovation slows. We must consider how to repair this breach. Councillor Vexith objected immediately. "They abandoned us. Any outreach now shows weakness." "No," Thune replied, its voice firm. "They left because we showed them no respect. That was our weakness. Acknowledging it is strength." But the Council could not agree on any course of action. Some wanted to invite humanity back. Others refused to admit any wrongdoing. A few suggested even harsher actions against human space. The debate went nowhere. Young Me, monitoring the Council through her sources, wrote another article. This one was titled, "They Still Do Not Understand." It described the Council's internal divisions and their inability to admit their mistakes. Ambassador Daejung read the article and smiled sadly. He had not expected the Council to change quickly. Real change took time, often years or decades. Humanity needed to focus on building its own future, not waiting for apologies that might never come. In his office, Director Tae Yang continued monitoring galactic developments. His screen showed a galaxy in slow transformation, trade patterns shifting, alliances reconsidering, old certainties becoming uncertain. He compiled a report for President Bora. The summary was simple. The galaxy thought it knew what humanity's departure would mean. They were wrong. We were more connected to their systems than anyone realized. Now everyone is learning that lesson. The question is whether they learn it in time. President Bora read the report and looked out at Earth below. Somewhere out there. 6 months after leaving the Council, humanity faced its first real crisis. The economic recession hit hard and fast. President Bora stood in her office on Earth, reviewing reports that made her stomach turn. Unemployment had risen 15% across human space. 3 colonies reported food shortages. Currency values were unstable. The problem was simple to understand but difficult to solve. For 80 years, human economy had been deeply connected to galactic trade networks. Now those networks were disrupted or gone entirely. Human merchants who once sold their goods across Council space found their access blocked or heavily taxed. Supply chains that fed human colonies broke down. On the colony of New Busan, Merchant Captain Jinna watched her crew unload the last cargo from their ship. The payment barely covered fuel costs. Her first officer approached with bad news. "Captain, we have 3 offers to buy the ship. All from alien buyers. They are offering good money." Jinna looked at her ship, the Silver Wing. She had captained it for 12 years, carrying cargo across the galaxy. The ship was not just her livelihood. It was her home. "No," she said firmly. "We are not selling. Not to them. But Captain, we can barely afford repairs. The crew needs to be paid." Then we find human routes. We build new trade paths. This ship stays human. Her first officer nodded, though worry showed on his face. Jinnah knew many other captains were making different choices. Every week, more human ships were sold to alien buyers at premium prices. Species that once competed with human merchants were happy to buy up their ships cheap. President Bora faced enormous political pressure. Opposition leaders in parliament demanded she reverse the withdrawal. We cannot eat our pride, they argued. People are suffering. We must rejoin the council, accept whatever terms they offer. Bora refused. If we go back now, we go back weaker than when we left. They will demand more concessions. We will lose everything we fought for, and we will still suffer. At least now we suffer with dignity. But dignity did not feed hungry children on distant colonies. Bora knew she needed solutions, not speeches. Admiral Sang Woo, Chief of Human Defense, accelerated military readiness programs. He had been a soldier for 40 years and understood something important. Isolated powers were often tested by their neighbors. Humanity needed to be ready. He consolidated defense fleets, improved response times, and increased training exercises. His officers questioned the expense when the economy struggled. Sang Woo was firm. An enemy only needs one moment of weakness. We will not give them that moment. His caution proved justified. 4 months after the withdrawal, a small fleet entered human space without permission. They were from the Kelvorian Empire, one of the species that had voted for Resolution 7749. Their ships moved toward an outer human colony. Their intentions unclear. Captain Hana's defense fleet intercepted them immediately. She opened communications. Kelvorian vessels, you have entered human territory without authorization. State your purpose or leave. The Kelvorian commander responded casually. We are simply passing through. This region of space is open to all. It is not, Hana replied coldly. Turn back now. The Kelvorian fleet did not turn back. They continued forward, testing human resolve. Hana gave one more warning, then ordered her ships to target lock the intruders. Weapon systems activated. The message was clear. Continue forward and face consequences. The Kelvorian commander finally took her seriously. His fleet turned and left without incident. But Hana knew this had been a test. They wanted to see if humans alone were vulnerable. Her response had answered that question with a firm no. News of the incident spread across human space. Public morale improved significantly. People saw that their military could defend them without council support. President Bora's approval ratings rose for the first time in months, but military strength alone could not solve economic problems. Humanity needed innovation. Dr. Hyan led a research team at the Advanced Physics Institute on Mars. His team had been working on faster-than-light drive improvements for years. Under council regulations, certain lines of research were restricted. Advanced drive technologies were controlled by the council's technology board. Species could only develop new drives with council approval. After the withdrawal, those restrictions no longer applied. Dr. Hyan's team accelerated their work dramatically. Within 5 months, they achieved a breakthrough. The new drive was revolutionary. It used quantum field manipulation in ways that had never been tried before. It was 30% more efficient than standard council drives. It was also significantly cheaper to manufacture. Dr. Hyun presented his findings to President Bora and her cabinet. This changes everything, he explained, his excitement barely contained. With this drive, our ships can travel faster and farther than any council vessel. Our merchants can reach markets in half the time. Our military ships gain a significant tactical advantage. Bora understood the implications immediately. How soon can we begin production? 6 months to retrofit existing ships. New ships can be built with the drives from the start. Make it happen. This is our path forward. The new drive technology spread across human space quickly. Merchant Captain Jinnah was one of the first to have her ship retrofitted. The Silverwing's new drive cut her travel time dramatically. Routes that had been unprofitable became viable again. She found new markets in independent systems outside council space. Other human merchants experienced the same transformation. They could not access council markets easily anymore, but they could reach other markets faster and cheaper than council ships. Human trade began recovering, the council noticed. Reports reached them about human ships with superior drives. Some species became concerned. Humanity had always been innovative, but council regulations had kept that innovation controlled. Now, without those controls, humans were advancing rapidly. Counselor Vexith dismissed the reports. Propaganda, he declared. Humans want us to think they are doing well. They are not. They are dying slowly, and they know it. But quieter voices in the council worried. If humans really had achieved better drive technology, what else might they achieve without restrictions? And what did it mean that they were developing these capabilities while standing alone, potentially hostile to the council that had rejected them? On Earth, President Bora began reaching out cautiously to the 8 species that had voted against Resolution 7749. Private channels were opened. Trade discussions began. These species were still council members, but they could trade with human space independently. The species responded positively. They needed the improved drive technology humans had developed. Bora offered it, but at a price: formal trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Nothing that violated council law, but everything that built connections between humans and sympathetic species. Within 3 months, formal agreements were signed with 5 of the 8 species. Human technology flowed to these partners. In return, resources and goods flowed to human colonies. The shortages began easing. Young Sulki lived on a border colony called Hope's Edge. She was only 19, born after humanity joined the council. She had grown up believing in galactic unity and cooperation. The withdrawal had shocked her. Now she watched as refugee ships arrived at Hope's Edge. They were not human. They were aliens from council space fleeing economic instability. The trade disruptions that hurt humans had hurt others worse. Some species had civil unrest. Others faced governmental collapse. Sulki volunteered at the refugee center. She helped families find housing, distributed food, assisted with medical needs. Many refugees were surprised by the kindness they received. They had been told humans were angry, isolationist, possibly dangerous. Instead, they found compassion. Sulki and thousands like her across human colonies refused to turn away people in need, regardless of species. We left the council, Sulki explained to a confused refugee family. We did not leave our principles. You need help, we help. It is simple. News of humanity's treatment of refugees spread across the galaxy. Young Mai wrote articles about it. Other journalists picked up the stories. The image of humans began changing in galactic public opinion. They were not the angry, withdrawn species some had portrayed. They were principled people who stood up for themselves but still showed mercy to others. This mattered more than President Bora had anticipated. Public opinion in council space slowly turned. Citizens of other species began questioning their own governments. Why had they pushed humans out? Why were humans thriving while council space struggled? The economic recession in human space continued, but it was no longer getting worse. New trade routes stabilized. The drive technology advantage helped. Alliances with sympathetic species provided resources. Human innovation found new solutions to old problems. Admiral Sang-Woo reported to President Bora that military readiness was at its highest point in human history. We are stronger now than we were in the council, he said. We are unified, motivated, and technologically advancing. Any species that considers us weak will regret that mistake. Bora looked at the reports from across human space. Unemployment was falling again. Food shortages had been resolved. Currency had stabilized. The worst of the crisis was passing. In her private moments, she wondered about the council. Did they see what was happening? Did they understand that humanity? 1 year after humanity left the council, Ambassador Dae-jung received an unexpected message. It came through secret channels heavily encrypted from someone inside the council he had not heard from in months. The message was brief: "We need you. Please help." The sender was Ambassador Krell of the Durrani Consortium, one of the 8 who had voted against taking human territory. Dae-jung sat in his office on Earth reading the message several times. After a year of silence from the council, why reach out now? A second message arrived with more details. 2 major council species, the Helvar Unity and the Kix Federation, stood on the edge of war. Their border dispute had escalated dramatically. Tensions that had simmered for 30 years were now boiling over. 3 border incidents in the last month had resulted in casualties. The council had tried to mediate, but neither side trusted the mediators offered. The Helvar suspected the Mantric Collective of favoring the Kix. The Kix refused any mediator from species that had voted for Resolution 7749. Both sides, however, specifically requested Ambassador Dae-jung. "You are always fair. Krell's message explained. The Helvar trust you. The Keeks trust you. You are the only one both sides will accept. Without mediation, this becomes a war. A war will destabilize the entire region. Please consider helping. Daejung took the message to President Bora. They met in her office, along with Director Tae Yang and Admiral Sang-woo. Bora read the request carefully. They want our help now? Admiral Sang-woo said, his voice hard. After pushing us out? After calling us emotional and short-sighted? They are desperate, Tae Yang observed. This conflict could spread. Other species might take sides. It could fracture the council entirely. Bora looked at Daejung. What do you think? Do you want to help them? The old ambassador considered carefully. The Helvar and Kix people do not deserve to suffer because their leaders made poor choices. If we can prevent a war, we should try, but we should not do it for free. What are your terms? Bora asked. A formal apology from the council for their treatment of humanity, recognition of our right to independent development, and a guarantee that if we help, both sides will honor the resulting treaty. We will not waste our time on mediation that they will ignore. Bora smiled. I like those terms. Draft a response. Let us see if they are desperate enough to accept. The response was sent through secure channels. For 3 days they heard nothing. Then High Arbiter Thune itself replied. The crystalline being's message was formal, but carried an undertone of humility Daejung had never heard before. Your terms are accepted. The council acknowledges its errors in judgment. We formally apologize for our treatment of humanity. We recognize your right to develop independently without council oversight. Please help us prevent this war. President Bora called an emergency cabinet meeting. They apologized. In all of galactic history, I do not think the council has ever apologized to anyone. This is significant. It is survival, Director Tae Yang noted. They apologize because they have no choice, but it is still progress. Daejung prepared to return to council space. But before he left, Bora gave him clear instructions. Help them, but do not let them forget what happened. We are not rejoining the council. We are assisting as an independent power. Make sure everyone understands that distinction. While Daejung prepared for his diplomatic mission, other developments transformed human space. Dr. Hyun's research team had not stopped with the improved faster-than-light drive. They continued innovating, freed from council restrictions. Dr. Hyun understood something important about human development. Earth's history was filled with competition and crisis that drove innovation. Other species, members of a stable council for centuries, had become comfortable. Comfortable species innovated slowly. Humans could not afford to be comfortable. Standing alone meant they had to stay ahead. Dr. Hyun's team worked on power generation, communication systems, medical technology, and agricultural efficiency. Breakthrough after breakthrough emerged from human research stations. President Bora made a strategic decision. These technologies would be shared, but selectively. The 5 species humanity had formal agreements with received access to most innovations. The 8 species who voted against Resolution 7749 received access to some technologies through trade deals. Council species that had supported Resolution 7749 received nothing. This created a technological divide across the galaxy. Species aligned with humanity advanced quickly. Those loyal only to the Council fell behind. This divide had powerful effects. Citizens of Council species began pressuring their governments. Why were their neighbors getting better technology? Why were trade deals benefiting humans and their partners while their own economies struggled? Councillor Vexith tried to maintain his coalition against humanity, but cracks appeared in that coalition quickly. Species that had followed his lead began questioning their choice. The economic cost of opposing humanity was becoming too high. Young Sulki, still working with refugees on Hope's Edge colony, saw these changes firsthand. More refugees arrived every week. Many were from species that had voted for Resolution 7749. They fled economic collapse, political instability, and in some cases, violence. Sulki helped them all without judgment. Your leaders made choices, she told a grateful Mantric family. You did not. We will not punish you for their mistakes. Her compassion was not unique. Across human colonies, similar scenes played out. Humanity's response to the refugee crisis became legendary. They could have turned people away, could have demanded apologies or payment. Instead, they helped. Young Mi wrote extensively about this phenomenon. Her article titled "The Strength of Mercy" circulated widely. It described how humanity, having been rejected by the Council, responded by embracing those the Council was failing. The article reached every corner of the galaxy. It was translated into hundreds of languages. Some governments tried to block it, but in the age of galactic communication, information could not be contained. Citizens read about human compassion and compared it to their own government's actions. Political pressure mounted across Council space. On the Helvar homeworld, protests demanded their government apologize to humanity. On 3 other worlds, governments fell entirely, replaced by leaders who promised better relations with human space. Ambassador Dae Jung arrived at a neutral station to begin mediating the Helvar Kix dispute. Both sides greeted him with respect, almost reverence. They had specifically asked for him, and humanity had answered their request. The mediation took 3 weeks. Dae Jung worked tirelessly, meeting with both sides separately and together. He listened to decades of grievances, mapped out territorial compromises, and built trust between old enemies. His success came partly from skill, partly from reputation. Both sides knew humans had been treated unfairly by the Council. Yet here was Dae Jung working to help Council species despite that treatment. His fairness was unquestionable. The treaty was signed on neutral ground. Borders were redrawn fairly. Trade agreements between Helvar and Kix were established. Mechanisms for future dispute resolution were created. War was averted. High Arbiter Thune attended the signing ceremony. Afterward, the crystalline being approached Dae Jung privately. "You saved many lives today." "Thank you. I did my job," Dae Jung replied simply. "It was more than a job. You showed us who humans truly are. I regret we did not see it sooner." Dae Jung looked at the ancient being. "Regret is useful only if it leads to change, will it?" Thune pulsed with light, a sign of deep thought in its species. "I hope so. But change is difficult, especially for old institutions. The Council has been the same for 800 years. Your departure challenges everything we believed about ourselves." Perhaps that challenge was needed. Back on Earth, President Bora received reports of the successful mediation. She also received reports from Director Taeyang about broader galactic changes. The picture he painted was remarkable. Human space had become a center of innovation and trade. The 5 formal partner species were thriving. The 8 sympathetic species were strengthening ties with humanity. Even some species from Vexith's coalition were quietly opening diplomatic channels. Meanwhile, the Council's core was fracturing. Old alliances were breaking. New factions were forming. The stable galactic order that had existed for centuries was transforming into something different. "We are not trying to destroy the Council," Bora said to her advisors, "but we are creating an alternative. Species are choosing to align with us because we offer something better: fair treatment, open trade, shared technology, partnership instead of hierarchy." Admiral Sang-woo added a military perspective. "We are also stronger. Our defense capabilities now exceed what they were in the Council. Any species that considers aggression against us or our partners will face unified advanced resistance." The Admiral was right. Human military technology had advanced significantly. The new drives gave tactical advantages. New weapon systems were more efficient. But most importantly, human forces trained constantly and coordinated perfectly with their partner species militaries. This combination of diplomatic success, economic strength, technological advancement, and military capability created something unprecedented in galactic history: an alternative power center to the Council, built not on conquest or coercion. 2 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, Ambassador Dae Jung stood at the entrance to the Council chamber once again. But this time everything was different. He was not entering as a supplicant or returning member. He was here to establish something entirely new. The previous months had been transformative for the galaxy. After successfully mediating the Helvar Kix conflict, Dae Jung had been called on for 3 more disputes. Each time he brought parties together that trusted no one else. Each time he succeeded in preventing war or resolving decades-old conflicts. These successes revealed a fundamental truth. The Council had always claimed to be necessary for galactic peace, but the Council itself had become so political, so corrupted by biases and power plays, that it could no longer fulfill its original purpose. Humanity, standing outside the system, could do what the Council no longer could. President Bora recognized this opportunity. She began reaching out to species beyond the original 8 who had supported humanity. Her message was simple: join us in building something better. The response surprised even Director Taeyang. 15 species from across the galaxy responded positively. They were not rejecting the Council entirely, but they wanted an alternative. A partnership based on equality and mutual respect rather than hierarchy and politics. President Bora called it the Open Alliance. Unlike the Council with its complex rules and power structures, the Open Alliance had simple principles. Every member had equal voice. Technology was shared freely among partners. Disputes were resolved through neutral mediation. Military cooperation was voluntary but encouraged. The economic and military power of the Open Alliance grew quickly. 15 species, including humanity, represented nearly 40% of galactic economic output. Their combined military forces, coordinated by Admiral Sang-woo and counterparts from partner species, were formidable. More importantly, the Open Alliance was succeeding where the Council failed. Trade flowed freely between member species. Innovation accelerated as scientists and engineers shared ideas without bureaucratic restrictions. Citizens of member species reported higher satisfaction with their governments. Dr. Hyon received recognition for his contributions to this success. The Open Alliance established the Galactic Prize for Scientific Achievement and named him the first recipient. He accepted the award at a ceremony attended by representatives from all member species. "This honor belongs not to me alone," Dr. Hyon said in his acceptance speech, "but to all scientists who believe knowledge should be shared." For too long, advancement was controlled and restricted. In the Open Alliance, we are free to innovate, free to share, free to build a better future together. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Citizens of Council species watched enviously. Their own scientists still operated under Council technology restrictions. Their own innovations moved slowly through bureaucratic review processes. High Arbiter Thune called an emergency session of the Council. The crystalline being knew the galaxy was reaching a critical point. The Council could continue as before and become increasingly irrelevant. Or it could adapt. "We must formally invite humanity and their partners to rejoin," Thune argued to the assembled representatives. "Not on our old terms, but on new ones, as equals. As partners." Councillor Vexith stood to object but found himself nearly alone. Most of his coalition had abandoned him. Species that once followed his anti-human rhetoric now recognized their mistake. The Mantric collective itself had split, with a faction demanding new leadership. The vote was overwhelming. The Council would invite humanity to return, offering unprecedented concessions, full equality, no restrictions on expansion or development, recognition of the Open Alliance as a legitimate galactic institution. But would humanity accept? President Bora called a summit of Open Alliance members to discuss the offer. The meeting took place on a neutral station, with representatives from all 15 member species present. "The Council offers us everything we left to achieve," Bora explained. "Equal treatment, full partnership, recognition of our rights. The question is whether we trust them to honor these promises." Ambassador Krell of the Dorani Consortium spoke up. "I have been part of the Council for 40 years. I have seen it make many promises. Some it keeps, others it forgets when convenient. We must be cautious." Ambassador Daejung listened to the debate carefully. Young voices like Sulki, now representing Hope's Edge Colony, argued for engagement. "We have shown the galaxy a better way. Now we must offer them a chance to join us in it." Older voices urged caution. They remembered decades of broken promises and unfair treatment. The wounds were still fresh. Finally, President Bora proposed a solution. "We do not rejoin the Council. Instead, we offer partnership between the Council and the Open Alliance as separate but equal institutions. We cooperate on shared interests. We respect each other's independence. Neither controls the other." The proposal was revolutionary. For 800 years, the Council had been the supreme galactic authority. Now humanity suggested a galaxy with two major powers, working together through mutual respect rather than hierarchy. The vote among Open Alliance members was unanimous. They would offer this partnership to the Council, but they would not compromise their principles or surrender their independence. Captain Hana led the human delegation that delivered the proposal to the Council. She had spent 2 years commanding defense fleets, protecting human space from those who saw independence as weakness. Now she walked into the council chamber not as a warrior, but as a diplomat. The council debated the proposal for 3 days. Some representatives resisted the idea of sharing power. They wanted the old order restored with the council supreme. But they were increasingly outnumbered. High Arbiter Thune brought the debate to a close. For 800 years, the council has been the center of galactic civilization. We believed that would never change. Humanity taught us that nothing is permanent. They left because we failed them. They succeeded without us because they built something better. Now they offer us a chance to learn from them. The vote passed. The Council and the Open Alliance would exist as partners. Neither supreme, both respected. A new galactic order based on cooperation between equals. A historic summit was organized to formalize the partnership. It would take place in the Council chamber, but the setup would be different. The Council podium and the new Open Alliance platform would stand at equal height, facing each other rather than in hierarchy. Ambassador Dai Jung was chosen to represent the Open Alliance at the summit. President Bora would attend, as would Admiral Sang-woo, Dr. Hyon, and representatives from all Alliance species. Young Mi would cover the event, her journalism having helped shape public opinion throughout the crisis. The day of the summit arrived. The council chamber was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Every species, whether council member, alliance member, or independent, sent observers. Dai Jung entered the chamber and felt the weight of history. 2 years ago, he had walked out of this room, leaving behind his seal and his hope for reform. Now he returned, not to the old position but to establish something new. President Bora spoke first, addressing both council and alliance representatives. 2 years ago, humanity left this chamber. It was the hardest decision we have ever made. We believed in the ideals the council was founded on, but we could no longer accept being treated as less than equals. She paused, letting her words settle. Today we return not to rejoin what we left, but to build something better. The Open Alliance and the Council will work together as partners. We will cooperate on shared interests. We will respect our differences. Neither will dominate the other. High Arbiter Thune responded from the Council platform. The Council acknowledges its failures. We let politics override principles. We let bias override fairness. Humanity's departure forced us to examine ourselves. What we found was not flattering. The crystalline being's voice carried genuine remorse. We cannot undo our mistakes, but we can learn from them. This partnership represents a new beginning for the galaxy, one based not on hierarchy but on mutual respect. Councillor Vexith sat silently in his seat. The Mantric Collective had removed him from his position of leadership, though he retained his council seat. He watched the ceremony with bitter regret, understanding too late the damage his pride had caused. After the speeches, Daejung approached the podium where he had left his seal 2 years earlier. The seal had remained untouched, a reminder of what had happened. Now he picked it up, but he did not reclaim his old position. Instead, he placed a new symbol beside it, the emblem of the Open Alliance, a circle of stars representing equal partnership. The two symbols sat side by side, neither above the other. This represents our future, Daejung said. Council and Alliance. Different, but equal. Partners in building a better galaxy. The chamber erupted in applause, not just from Alliance members, but from many Council species as well. They understood they were witnessing a transformation of galactic civilization. Over the following months, the new partnership took shape. Joint committees were established for trade, security, and scientific cooperation. The Council's more restrictive rules were reformed. The Alliance's innovations were shared with willing Council species.